You hear the screeching of an owl, you hear the wind begin to howl. You know there's zombies on the prowl, 'cause it's terror time again. Hey guys, how's it going? It is I, the real Randy Chavez, coming at you today with a very, 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 very scary story. It took me a long time to find this. I'd read this several years ago when I was in the military, when I was working at it's an air passenger terminal. It's an airfield, Air Force base. I've worked on a couple of Air Force bases and airfields, and this story really struck home to me. It's going to be a long one, so apologize on the lengthiness of it. If you're looking for a long car ride, this is it. Before we start, everyone say hello to Deshi. Hello, Deshi. May she protect us. All right. This is from Reddit by INAAACE. Now, the story goes, I was an air traffic controller at Atlantic Municipal Airport, Iowa, for 27 years. My first year at the job, I unwillingly went from a firm atheist to a believer. Here's why. My uncle and aunt came to visit me here in Atlanta. We got to talking about all sorts of general things. You know how family is. But we somehow ended up on the topic of strange supernatural. This is when my uncle started telling me his story. A story that he says will haunt him all the way to the grave. I stopped him 2 minutes into it and got my laptop because I wanted to write it down for the Reddit no sleep. These are his memories, almost word for word. Forgive the non-traditional writing. Are you typing? You are? Okay. And your friends on the internet will read this? Ha, alright. But warn them that these are just an old man's memories. Okay? So back to the beginning. So I graduated from Fordham in 1974, and I still had no idea what to do. Times were different then. We were able to find jobs easily. Jesus, I remember companies practically begging us to work for them. But I didn't want to do some dopey desk job for the rest of my life, so I waited. And one day, while flying to visit your aunt on Thanksgiving, I caught myself being fascinated with the complexity of air traffic control systems. And that's all it took. I decided to become an air traffic controller, and by the time I turned 27, I passed all the necessary tests and have accumulated enough experience to be hired and work without supervision. The thing with air traffic controllers is that you don't really get to choose where you're going to work in the beginning. Sure, we all wanted to work at JFK or Hartsfield-Jackson, but those jobs just weren't available to us rookies. So I had to take a job in bumfudge little town Iowa called Atlantic. It was literally a single landing strip in a damn cornfield. But I had to pay my dues, and the money was alright. Now, small airports like these usually only work 8 to 5, but this particular strip was in such a geographical location that there were a lot of flights going above us at any time, so we needed to stay open until 4 a.m. in case of an emergency landing. Now, by staying open, I mean I had to sit in the control tower and there was one security guy sleeping in the airport's only terminal. I can attest to that fact. Just break from the story a little bit. Yeah, that happens. Back to the story. It wasn't that bad, really. I'd bring my books and crossword puzzles. I'd spend hours on the phone with your aunt. You know how they say that the air traffic controller is the most stressful job in the world? Well, I was bored 99% of the time. And that 1% was guiding small Cessnas into my cornfield airport. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, about 3 months into my job, something started happening. Something that, even today, I'll save you the talk about the supernatural. But what happened at that airport, that just ain't right. February 20th, 1979. I remember it like it was just yesterday. It was your regular winter night in Iowa. Winds freezing cold, but no snow. Might have been too cold to snow. I was supposed to work until close, although we didn't have any flights scheduled. And around 1 a.m., I received a radio message from a small Cessna about 30 miles from the airport. They're having a really bad snowstorm up in Omaha, needed to land here in Atlantic. I guess being open late was justified after all. So I got my binoculars out, verified the visibility, and started guiding the aircraft. Although it was really windy out there, I managed to touch down. I looked through the binoculars to verify the landing went okay, and that's when I saw her for the first time. Just walking down the runway as if it were a normal street. And this was this woman Now, there were about 100 things wrong with this situation. First, the woman was wearing some sort of short summer dress or a nightgown, and she was barefoot, believe it or not. Now, a normal person would be cold dressed like that during the summer, but let alone our winter? Then you had to wonder what in the world this person was doing, walking down the active runway. How the hell she got there to begin with. So, quote, Flight 84 is Alex from Air Traffic Control. Do you happen to see a woman walking down the runway towards you? End quote. I asked the pilot who had just landed. He answer said, let me check. And still watching through the binoculars, I saw him open the door of the plane, get out, start walking towards the woman. Not gonna lie, at this point, I was having a lot of fun. Not much happened in Atlantic, Iowa, and this was certainly the most entertaining. I couldn't wait to hear her story. I bet it was that she got in a car accident maybe near the airport and, she saw lights, whatever. The pilot walked up to her, and I could make it that he was saying something, and I saw, still through the binoculars, her lean to his ear and almost whisper something to him. I don't know how you could hear over that wind, but he just stood there for a good 10 seconds, neither moving. She was still leaned close to his ear, and then he just snapped out of it. I guess turned around and literally sprinted back to the plane. When I saw the propeller start to rotate, I jumped on my radio. I said, Flight 84, what are you doing? No answer. Flight 84, I repeat, what is happening? Nothing. And the plane started moving. Started speeding up. Quote, Flight 84, you do not have permission to take off. I repeat, you are not cleared for takeoff. But same thing. And no answer. Damn Cessna kept speeding up and then took off. Nothing I could really do besides making sure that there were no other planes were above us at that time. And I tried one more time. Flight 84, this is air traffic control. What the hell is happening? And then my radio started making white noise. Was all I could hear coming from the radio. I said, Flight 84, please repeat, you're breaking up. What a night, I thought. Radio started transmitting again. Run. It's like, Flight 84, did you say run? Repeat yourself. Nothing else came from that damn radio. The plane was long gone. I sank into my chair trying to decipher what the fudge just happened. Pardon my French, but run? Run from what? What the hell? And then it dawned on me. The woman. So I grabbed the binoculars again, and she was looking straight at me. Good 200 yards away at night, and she was somehow looking straight at my eyes. Eyes so wide, it's hard to explain what she looked like. I guess how someone is super surprised and their eyes widen. Like when you startle someone, their eyes get so wide, it's some sort of defense mechanism, I guess. But that's how she was looking. Straight at me. And what in the world? And I was just mumbling to myself, and at that moment she started running towards my tower. Like not jogging, but really running. Still looking straight at me, and I swear to you, goosebumps ran all over me like 10,000 cold ants. And I'm not one to get scared. I spent 6 years in Vietnam. Something about this situation, something about the pilot telling me to run, and this woman sprinting towards me, just seemed so wrong. Oh, I said, Joe, you there? I blurted into the radio. Joe was our nightly security guard, but he didn't answer. I was like, damn, all right. I looked through the window just in time to see the woman run into my tower. Heard the door downstairs slam open, and I honestly did not know what to do. It wasn't a rational situation. If it were some sort of terrorist or whatever, I know what needs to be done. But this, it didn't seem malicious. It was certainly strange, and that exact weirdness of just not knowing what is happening made me run into the bathroom and lock the doors. And as I turned the lock, I heard the control room doors open. You know how in your generation's movies you just hear quiet footsteps of some invader slowly looking for you, and then the shadow shows up under the door? Well, this was the exact opposite. As soon as those doors opened, chaos began. I tried peeking through the keyhole, but all I was able to see is a vast shadow running across the room, accompanied by tremendous noise. I swear I was so shocked that at one point I nearly opened the door just to see what was causing it all. And then I heard a hard slam into the bathroom door that had nearly knocked me on the floor. And then nothing. Silence. I could lie and pretend I was brave enough to get out of that bathroom soon after. But I wasn't. I'll admit it. I stayed there the whole night waiting for the morning shift. Around 7:45 a.m., I heard a familiar voice say, "What in the fudge?" It was Clark, the morning shift controller. I opened the door to see a scene so twisted that even to this day, I remember every detail. Control room was nearly total. Radios ripped out, papers and manuscripts everywhere, radar screens smashed to pieces. And when the police came, I gave my full report. It took 11 days to repair the equipment and get the room fully functional, and the security guard on duty that night was fired. I even started considering installing security cameras. And I know, today that seems pretty normal, but let me remind you, this was in the 70s. Police had no idea what to make of it, so they urged us just to report anything suspicious. I used the 11-day break to sort myself out, and by the end of that forced vacation, I was convinced that all of this was caused by some just deranged woman, possibly on drugs, maybe a mental patient. Just told myself something so I could sleep at night. So I came back to work on March 4th. I was a bit worried about working nights again, but I was convinced that whoever did this probably far gone by now. Now, the next month or so, pretty uneventful. Just how I liked it. I was scheduled to get hit with a big snowstorm that day, so most of the flights were grounded, but some were still in the air and I had to work. Now, I hated it because if we did get hit with heavy snow, I'd probably end up being stranded. Now, I wish that was the worst that had happened, but around 11 p.m. that night was when I was already snowing, it was big time, and I received a radio message from a small private jet that was about 50 miles away. So they were getting caught in some heavy winds. Pilots wanted to land on our airport immediately. Now, jets like that would be traditionally too big to land at our strip, but the emergency like this called for overriding of those guidelines. So I reached out. Flight 676, you are cleared to land, but we have to remain in contact at all times. The strip is pretty short. Do you copy? Copy that. Let's just put this puppy down, shall we? So it was snowing heavily by that point, and thankfully we had a cleanup crew decide and clean the runway before they headed home, so it was still in good condition. And again, back then, they were much more relaxed about the rules. So I took a look at the strip, made sure it was clear, and out of nowhere, just like when I forgot about her, she appeared. Just slowly strolling down the strip, about 100 yards away from the tower, bare feet slowly moving across the freezing asphalt. And the worst part about it, she looked straight at me again. And again, and again, with those crazy eyes. This is when I realized the most disturbing thing about her was that she was not blinking. Wind going in her face, snow going, eyes remained wide-eyed open. I was looking at her for a good 2 minutes, wind and snow blast in her face, and she still wasn't blinking. It was almost as if she didn't want me to lose a heckin' millisecond of looking straight at me. So I'm thinking, oh man. Flight 676, maintain the altitude until further communication. Traffic control is 676. That's a negative. We cannot maintain with headwinds like this. We have to land. Are we clear? We're 6 minutes away. Now, I couldn't risk the lives of those people in that plane. I had to land them despite whatever was walking down the runway. And 676, you're clear to land. I put down the radio and looked through the window, and she was now some 10 yards away, coming closer to the tower. Though I shouldn't have, in any circumstances, left the control room. I ran downstairs to the first floor and locked the outside door. I knew she was close and I knew she was coming. When I got to the back room, I heard the radio. Or when I got back to the room, I heard the radio and said, "Control tower, we are approaching the runway. Please advise." All right, rotate 3 degrees right. Do you copy? Copy that. We see the lights now. See you soon. I looked up through the window and could see the plane in the distance. No trace of the woman on the runway. Signed a breath of relief. I was going to deal with the issue after the jet had safely landed. And at that moment, a loud noise broke through the tower. I didn't want to believe it, but I was afraid that the first floor door had slammed open. How? I have no idea. I locked it. I know I locked it. I just went down there to lock it. Then goosebumps overcame me again, almost as if my body could just feel like something was wrong that I couldn't. First instinct was to lock myself in the bathroom again, but I couldn't leave the radio. So footsteps on the metal stairs were getting louder. I assumed it was her, just running at least, but the violent sound of the footsteps made me think she was just like slamming her feet in the ground with every step. I don't know, but 676 is a traffic control. I have visual confirmation. Clear to land. Heard the control room door open, and this is when I just realized how afraid I was. Almost 70 years old now. Not embarrassed to admit how scared I was at the moment. Matter of fact, I was so scared, I couldn't even turn around. If you can believe that. I just couldn't face what was behind me. Very unusual because I was always composed and rational, whether it was being stuck in a ditch in Vietnamese jungle, being nearly hit by an 18-wheeler on the highway. Always calm. And there I was, staring straight at my radio, unable to turn my head and face it. Now, I'm sure your friends on the internet will laugh at how reacted, but I guarantee most of you will behave the same way. Your body just doesn't behave normally when it's terrified. So the only thing I could do was speak. Traffic control, 30 seconds out. Here we go. Came from the radio. And I slowly pressed the talk button on the radio. My teeth were literally chattering. All clear, I muttered. Then I felt a cold breath on my neck. She was behind me, breathing slowly into my neck. I could feel the lips move up toward my ear. When you're a kid and someone was messing behind your back and it makes you just cringe. Bunny ears, you could somehow feel it. I could feel that the mouth was an inch from my ear, though I couldn't even see her with the corner of my eye. I was still nearly paralyzed. I admit I used to be ashamed of my inability to act in this surreal situation, but the way I look at it, no one can tell me they'd react any differently. It just wasn't an earthly situation. Oh. Come down to field. Come down. The whisper crawled into my ear. You'd normally think that hearing a voice would somehow diffuse the situation, or at least brush away any thought of the supernatural, but that voice was so different than anything I had ever heard. I'm not a writer, can't explain it. It was a cold, inhuman even. But what scared me the most was the anger I felt in it. Even though she was whispering, I could feel the rage. And I don't even know how to put it into words. Her voice lacks something that every other voice had. I don't know how to explain it. Something comes in over the radio, said, "Touchdown, traffic control 676 is on the ground. Hope you have some hot chocolate ready." And the woman behind me snapped back, and I heard what I assumed was just running. And at that point, I forced myself to turn around just in time to hear her running out, barefoot. So I got on the radio, 676, welcome. Made myself say into the radio, though my legs were still foreign to the rest of my body. Propped myself up and looked through the window. I was expecting to see the woman running, but she was nowhere to be seen. I thought that she was still in the building, maybe, and this time I managed to get the security guy on the radio, and he showed up a couple minutes later, did a full walkthrough of the tower, but no trace of that lady. I started feeling relieved only when the police showed up. They thoroughly searched the building with no success. They did notice a trace of footsteps coming from the neighboring cornfield to the tower, but no prints going back. Now, imagine my situation at the time. Just take a second to think about it. You're the only one to ever see this woman. That's what I'll call her. I wouldn't be surprised if the police started to think that, and I was hitting the bottle during work, and decided to keep it to myself until I could prove that there was this person disrupting or haunting, the airport. So I couldn't really quit. And honestly, would you? Probably not. Yes, there were two absolutely surreal experiences, and I did feel some sort of intangible hazard, but I didn't think my life was in any danger. I was just frightened to death. And so I decided to stick with it. Winter was almost over anyway. And spring, that's another story. And guys, that was it. I hope you guys had fun. I'm gonna there's a second part, I guess, so I'm gonna read that as well. But I hope you guys had fun. I'm not gonna lie, I got a little worked up during that. A little scared. Anyway, guys, please comment, like, and subscribe. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. Everyone say bye bye to Dashi. Bye bye, Dashi. I love you guys. Goodbye. Meow meow.